So welcome to another Big Jimny video. In this one we're going to look at changing out the media unit. This is a LCV, a commercial one from about a year ago. They were discontinued, so for 3 or 4 years before that we had the commercial and the SZ4, both of which were sort of lower end of the specification, so they got the low end media center. We're getting reports now of these centers, this particular unit here, not connecting properly on Bluetooth, which is probably due to not anything that's happened in the unit, but in fact due to the software upgrades on people's phones. People change their phones, get new phones, or the phone gets updated software, and I suspect that it's no longer quite compatible with the Bluetooth on here. So they're dropping out and people are complaining about it, and that's what's happened. That's one of the reasons why we want to change these units. Also, there's a lot of interest in Japanese imports at the moment, and if you get a Japanese import, it either doesn't come with a radio at all. If it's a fairly new one, there'll be nothing here, it will be an empty space, or it will have a Japanese radio in it, and Japanese radios aren't compatible with the UK system. They don't have DAB at all in Japan. There's no digital radio whatsoever, and VHF FM is on a different set of frequencies, so you can't actually listen to the UK frequencies on a Japanese radio. There are converters that you can buy to convert one radio to another, but I don't rate those sorts of things very highly. They do funny frequency shifting to get it to work. Okay, so it is time to change the unit, and we'll have a look at putting a new unit in one of these. Just to say as well, watch out for the continuity. This isn't a BBC documentary. You will see me change clothes. You will see the weather change. You will see the car completely change from a black Jimny to a blue one, because we will be filming this over a number of days, cutting the film together from different segments, and in fact the radio is actually going to end up in the blue one. We're just testing it in the black one because James doesn't want me testing it in his car. So all those things will change, but please excuse that. Anyway, enough waffling, on with the video. Let's get on now with the process of actually changing and installing the new radio. As with any radio install, it's really two things we have to address here. The first is the physical install. Do we have all the right parts to physically install the new radio in the car? And the second is the electrical. Do we have the right cables and wiring in order to configure it? I'll look at the cables and wiring a bit later on when we get the new radio out to look at it a bit closer. So first, let's look at the physical installation sides for one of these LCV radios. Now, as you can see, the radio is custom installed. It's in a casing that is designed to fit in the car. So it's dedicated to the Jimny. But in fact, they're fairly easy to remove. And this panel here is just a plastic trim, and it is poppered into place. So once you sort of pull it forward a bit, you can insert, a plastic trim removal tool, something like that, and then you can just popper it off here and here. I mean, you can do it with your fingernails if you wish, and that then reveals inside here these two screws. So what we have to do using a screwdriver is just remove those two screws. It will take a standard Phillips, although it probably is a JIS headed screw. Now, the rest of the radio is just fitted in with clips around the back of the trim underneath. So just by pulling the radio forward now, you'll release those clips and out will come the radio. Around the back of the radio, we have a number of cables, which all have to be released out. They've all got little tags on them, little tiny tags on them. They're quite stiff, but you literally press the tag in and pull at the same time. Once you've done that, pressed all those in, removed them all, the radio comes away. So let's just have a look at what cables we've got here. This is a UK spec LCV. So it's got a number of cables. These aren't the same as the cables in the SZ5 in terms of numbers. There's more cables in the SZ5. There's just a few in here. The key one here is this blue connector. This is the Suzuki main connector to the radio. So it contains the things like the speakers, the power, etc. required to drive the radio. There's a USB cable which connects to the socket, the USB socket down below. There is a ISO FM aerial connector. So this is for the VHF FM radio connection. There is a FACRA connector. This is a FACRA type A, I think it is. Looking at it, it is the radio for the DAB. This is the DAB aerial radio for the radio. And then there is a grey connection, which, according to my references, is the microphones that go up here. Okay, so those are the connectors you've got. So they're the ones that we're going to have to interface to when we plug in the radio, because we don't want to hack these about. We want to keep these fairly straightforward. Looking at the radio, we've now taken it out. So the first thing we need to do is to write on here what the VIN number of the car is. That's so that you can unlock this radio, because this radio is now locked. Now the power's off of it, this radio is locked. You need the VIN number to unlock it. And you'll always forget, if you've got any of these stuck up in the garage, you'll forget what the VIN number of the car was when you come to sell the radio on, or whatever you do. Write the VIN number down on the casing of the radio, okay, because that way you can unlock it. Secondly, you'll see here on this radio, you've got two brackets, one either side. Okay, now those brackets are crucial for mounting a radio into this frame. So they're what we need to go onto the new radio. Now, if you're doing a JDM fit, you probably won't get these brackets with it. It might even be completely empty in here and not have things like these brackets available with the car. If they do, then great. If they don't, then you can buy them from the link down in the description. But you need to keep these two brackets. They are just screwed on either side of the radio. So I've now removed the two brackets. Also, because the radio's now left all of this space here. If you recall on the real radio, it's trimmed, the radio is built to fit into this space. Well, of course, the new radio isn't, so you need to also buy a trim piece for a DIN 2 radio, which Suzuki sell and various suppliers around the country. Now, it may be that they suppliers around the country supply these parts as a kit. You can get an install kit for DIN 2 radios, which includes the wires that we will see shortly when we look at the main radio. So on that front, let's move into the house and have a look at what you get with the new radio. On our way into the house, let's take a few minutes to have a quick look at the aerial outside. You saw in the previous bits and pieces that there are two aerial sockets down at the radio end, and they both on the UK LCV turn up at this aerial on the roof. Okay, this aerial deals with both DAB and VHF FM radio for the UK. And therefore, it is a single aerial with a splitter and a series of amplifiers in here to improve the signal. Now, these amplifiers need a phantom power. So at the far end, we've got to feed in 12 volts. Now, on the standard radio, this is fed in by the radio into the system. But on the new radio, we're going to have to substitute it. And according to the circuit diagram, the feed for the power is in the FM lead. So we're going to need to put power down the FM lead, even if you're not going to use FM, even if you're only going to put a DAB radio in, you need to put the power down the FM lead as well for the amplifier to work. Now, if you've got a Japanese model one, then although you've got an aerial on the back, of course, there's no DAB. it's FM only, and their FM band is different to ours, so the radio aerial is actually not tuned to the correct band. Now, you could put up with this if you wanted to do FM only, because it will receive something, but if you wanted to change over to a proper DAB and FM aerial, then there's a link below where you can buy this UK aerial so that you have both DAB and FM in a single unit. This is the radio we got. It's an Eonon UA12S Plus. Okay, the crucial thing here really is the amount of memory it's got. In order for these Android-based radios to work, spend your money on memory. This is a 6 gig memory version. Otherwise, the performance is a bit too low. We'll look at these other accessories in a second that I've bought. This is you can see this unboxing is a fake one because it's already been unboxed. Sets of instructions. So this is a touchscreen radio based on Android, as we said. So it's going to come with a screen and a main unit. When it's delivered, the screen is separate and loose, but it just slides on top of there. I've actually got it disconnected at the moment because I was just playing about with it. It would come connected up on the cable, but not attached to the radio. And the way it attaches to the radio is to just slide on like that. But I'll leave that for now. So it's a touchscreen radio with a unit here. In the car, you heard me just now talking about fixings. As you can see, this has got loads of choices of fixing holes because it's designed to be fitted in a variety of mounts. In the box is a connection kit, which comes with all you need to connect it. But when I say all you need, it's basically all you need to connect it to a standard car. And of course, a standard car doesn't actually exist. So what you've got is a main connection. So this takes the connector at the back of the radio unit and converts it to an ISO connectors here. But again, if you notice, the Suzuki doesn't have ISO connectors, so we've then got to do some more conversion there. But this is the main cable out of the back of the radio. You then get a pair of USB cables. There are 4G aerials. This is because the radio will work in full standalone mode. It doesn't need a paired Android phone or anything like that. It can act as a phone itself. It's got a 4G SIM slot, and here on this cable is the little SIM connector. This cable here also provides outputs for various amplifiers. If you want to put the bass amplifier under your seat and all that, that's all on there, as is the various bits and pieces for the microphone, for the cameras and all of that. So there's the microphone connectors and so on that you need to connect various accessories basically to the unit itself. There is the microphone. Okay, now we can't use the Suzuki one because this is the 3.5mm connector and the Suzuki one was that little grey connector, so we'll probably end up having to use the standard microphone. There is then another cable which has got the reversing camera and consequently it's also got a signal. In this case, this signal is from the brake. This is an amplifier cable including a CAN bus connector for some of the CAN bus style controls and a GPS unit. Okay, this is so that the Android tablet, because it's basically a tablet running a radio, this is so that the Android unit knows where it is and can do the mapping. Okay, but of course, if you're running Android Auto or you're running Apple CarPlay, then you don't need that because your phone will be providing the GPS, it's providing the mapping, but you can use the internal mapping, and there is a mapping slot on the front of the radio there for you to put your own map on micro SD card. You can put your own mapping in there. If you're running other software like TomTom or whatever that needs maps on a memory card, and then there are various fitting screws and fitments there. So what else did we buy? So being an Android unit, you can add on different things. Now it only comes with a built-in FM, so that's the VHF FM radio in it. But I personally quite like DAB. We live in an area where DAB actually works quite well. So I've got this DAB receiver add-on, okay, which is a USB. So that's what one of the USB cables would do, a USB DAB receiver. It comes complete with one of those stick-on windscreen aerials, which I won't use because, of course, my Jimny, the LCV, has got a DAB aerial on the back of the car. I've just got to wait for a adapter cable to arrive. We'll go through what cables I'm getting as we go along, so that you can see how we're converting the connections into matching with the Suzuki. But there's the DAB receiver. The unit is also capable of reading OBD2, which is, of course, the CAN bus signals in the car, and produces some nice displays using an app in it called Talk. Okay, so I bought an OBD2 plug-in. Okay, I've already got one of these, but they were so cheap that it was on offer with the radio, so it was so cheap to get another one, and therefore I can keep my separate reader for the other cars, and I've got a reader that fits in the car there. So that sums up the entire kit that you get with the car. So moving on to the specific connectors, these don't come in the kit, you have to buy these separately. If you remember, in the Suzuki we had that little blue cable, which I said was specific to the blue connector, which was specific to the Suzuki. Well, this is the adapter for it. Don't worry if you can't read the part number here. It's down below in the description. Okay, it's for Suzuki, Swift and Vitara, but of course the Vitara and the Swift and the Jimny are basically the same electrically anyway. So this is the one that adapts the ISO connectors on the cable that comes with the radio. It connects this through to the Suzuki connector. So there is the one that fits into the blue Suzuki connector. And if you recall, there's the one that fits in the radio. Remember I said this is specific to that Eon unit. Okay, well this adapts the ISO to here, like so. So then you've now got the Eon radio connector there, and you've got a Suzuki connector there. Yes, it seems to me a bit kludgy that you've got all of these different connections here, but that is the way it has been designed. Now, key to our solution is that we want all the controls to work. So you're going to see me working out how to sort out the USB, the aerials, when we get those cables. But this one comes with this little unit here in the pack. You don't buy this separately. It comes in the pack. What you do have to buy is an adapter cable for it. So another adapter cable. Okay, so this is what does the steering wheel controls. And this basically, it only fits one way, so it fits onto there like that. So that's now into the loom between the two, and you've then got this. This is what's called the general or universal connector adapter. Again, the description below will have the details in, and that fits into here like so. Okay, and then you then have these two connectors, these three connectors here. This one is superfluous, it's not needed in this situation. These then connect up. So on the adapter end, you've got steering wheel control 1 and steering wheel control 2. And on the other end of the universal adapter, you've got key 1 and key 2. I've been assured that you connect 1 to 1 and 2 to 2. And key 1 to control 1. This adapter cable has arrived and is for the DAB aerial. So there's an SMA connector, a male SMA connector on that end, and a FATCRA connector. This is FATCRA type Z, which is the universal FATCRA, so it's a sort of turquoise colour, and there's no keyway on the connector so that it can fit into any FATCRA end. So it's a universal fit one. I also want to connect the USB connector within the car. The car has a USB connector down at the bottom, but of course that's got the end designed to fit the Suzuki radio. It doesn't fit the new radio. Well, the new radio's got USB on it. So here is a USB, effectively a USB port extender that will fit so that I can have the USB port in the car working correctly. So the final adapter has arrived. This adapter connects the ISO aerial connector that's on the Jimny through to the good old-fashioned aerial connector that's on the radio, and provides that phantom 12-volt power input that's required for the aerial amplifier. We have to connect power into here, and this adapter from the back of the radio has an amplifier signal out, which is where it signals to the amplifier that the radio switched on. So this will be a 12 volt, and it only needs to be tiny current. So I'm going to use this to feed the aerial. With the radio test assembled and all the wiring sorted out, I've now moved over to James's car where we're going to do the install. I have been running it in my car for a few days to sort out a few little issues, which we'll talk about at the end. But now it's time to fit it here. The first thing that we're going to do is, if you recall, I talked about getting a USB cable. That's because obviously when I take out the Suzuki unit, the USB cable for the Suzuki unit that fits at the radio end is a different fitting. So I've bought a more universal setup, but I want the socket to actually work properly. So we're going to get that bit working. We've also got to install the GPS aerial and the microphone. So we're going to press on with those things first. So here's the USB socket. It's a round one fitted into the bottom of the console. So what we have to do is remove the little box here, and then remove the plastic framework from around the switchgear here into which the USB socket is fixed. The way you do that is you pull out the little pins on the sides of these units and then just release the clips all the way around. These prise out with the end of a screwdriver like so, and then come out. And of course, I'm going to do the ones the other side as well. With the remove from both sides, you can then just remove this panel like so, and then you have to remove this one, which is again just clipped in now that you've undone those studs. Before you move the side panel with the switches on, you need to remove this blanking cover here, or just plain old cover, and you do that by pulling firmly from the bottom. You can also try releasing it by using a plastic wedge tool from the top at the same time, and it just pulls away. With that side panel removed, you can then pull this panel away. It's quite stiff along here, but I inserted a prise tool in this gap here, and then it literally breaks away from its studs like that. And then that reveals the USB connector down under here. So that's what we're going to remove. This is the USB socket. It's easier to show you how to remove it with it already removed. Okay, there's a little tag on the top where my finger is. You insert a screwdriver on the top and squeeze that tag down. Okay, there's a tag at the bottom as well. Okay, that side there's another tag there. So you can squeeze those down using the end of a screwdriver and just wiggle it out of its hole. This is the new USB socket with the end on it This will fit into the fly leads that come off the radio, and there's the USB end. Okay, now you can see when you compare this with the old one that it is just going to slide into the same hole that the old one did, but the old one had clips, whereas this one is threaded with a nut. So I'm not going to show you this because it won't come out on camera, but I'd simply pass this backwards through the hole, putting the nut on the end of the cable, taking it all the way through, and then tightening this up into the panel. And with a bit of fiddling, you can take the cable here and push it up. This is obviously the right-hand drive version of the car. Push it up this side, round the back of the gap between the steering wheel and the heater here, and then you'll be able to reach it so that it comes out here. So that's now got the new style of USB through from the console up to the radio where we're going to fit it. And then you just offer the switch assembly back up and push it back in until all the clips engage properly, and then put the pins back in at the base. Next, we're going to put in the GPS puck or mouse. The way I would put this in is to put it down in this corner here, and then just feed the wire between the panels all the way round to the radio by going through the back of the glove box. So we'll be able to reach up the wiring in the back of the glove box as we pass it down. I'm not going to really show you this because what we're going to do is literally prise the panel gap open and pass the wire into it and pick up the wire down inside the glove box. And with a bit of pulling and pushing, that cable comes along the top of the glove box inside the dashboard and out of there. So for the microphone, we're going to do pretty much the same thing as you just seen me do with the GPS. We're going to fit this up on the pillar, and then we're going to run the cable all the way down inside the pillar and across the top of the dashboard inside to the radio outlet. So you can see here that I've fed a long rigid cable tie which I can touch from inside the dashboard. Here's the end of the microphone. I'm just going to tape the end of the microphone to that cable tie, and then it can act as a pull through to pull the microphone cable through behind the steering wheel. With the wiring in the car itself now complete, we've got the GPS and the microphone connected. It's now just time to put the radio in, and there's really not an awful lot I can say about that because it's just plug it into all the connectors provided. I think the only thing to comment on here is that all the old wiring is covered in foam, which is clearly to stop it buzzing and rattling inside the dashboard. And I actually haven't got any foam to cover the new wiring with. So I'm going to tie it all up and make sure that it is generally tucked away inside there. But I may have to come back and do the same idea that Suzuki have done, which is just to stick self-adhesive foam around each of the wires. So I've assembled the radio, I've trapped the screen surround inside here, having been playing around with the adjustments on here. As you can see in these photographs, I've played around and moved them around to get this lined up with the front seam of the front panel in there. You'll see that on the close-up picture, and about 5 mils down from the top. That's the ideal position for this radio, in my opinion, to get the right spacing. So now it's just a matter of connecting it all up together. So there's the main cord gone on, and now here is the aerial and the microphones. And then we have the USB with the radio receiver, the DAB radio receiver in it. And then we have the other USB cable to put on. Then we have the old FM aerial to put in. Then we have the DAB aerial. Right, so we have the other end of the FM aerial, which goes in the old FM socket. We have the GPS, which screws onto the GPS connector. Like so. We have the main cord, which connects into the blue connector from Suzuki, and the microphone itself, which goes in the end of the flying lead with the microphone connector on it, on the back of the radio. My feeling is that I'm going to have to take this out again to wrap some of these wires up in protective foam to stop them rattling around, because there's just so many of them. But once you get to this stage, the radio should just push into position. How I can tell that it's in place is there's two little plastic studs under here which fit through holes in the bottom mounting plate. So that's that in, and then we should be able to just move this around into position. So I've now pushed it in, attached the rear plate properly in position, located the radio on the little pins down inside the bottom mounts. Right, after much fiddling around, mainly because I needed to get the height of the screen right. There's some sliding adjusters on the back, and I need to get the height of the screen right to where I wanted it. But of course you can't get your fingers in there. So I was messing around with bringing it forward, bringing it back, trying to get my fingers in and out. So I won't say it isn't fiddly to get it where you want, but it certainly took a bit of effort. Everything's screwed in now, everything's aligned. I can now move the screen around to where I want it, and I can take the screen protector off, and we can now turn things on. Now I did have this set up in the other car, so I'll see what memories have lasted between the power off and the power on here, because obviously I had the radio programmed in and that over there for testing. So I'll just see as a personal setup, and that you don't see this boot every time the car is starting. You only see that boot when it has been powered off. So the thing I have got programmed up, or should have programmed up, is the DAB radio. That's what I spent a lot of time on.
Ones of different people's opinions.
Oh, good. So it's retained all the memories in moving over. That was the key thing that I wanted. So it's all done. So a couple of final things then. It's all in and working. The USB's working, so we got things like Android Auto working. It works via wireless as well. I was just checking out that I'd wired in the USB port correctly. So that is Android Auto running there, although I know James is an Apple fan, so he'll be playing around with Apple Play or whatever it's called. Couple of things to suggest. Number one is I had loads of trouble with the DAB radio. I bought the DAB radio adapter that comes with this, an A503 or some number like that, okay, which is the Eon On one. Okay, there is a known restriction about that isn't published until you complain about it, and that is it'll only accept 120 radio channels. And you go, oh, 120 DAB radio channels? Who the hell wants 120 DAB radio channels? The problem is that it has to scan all of the channels. Even though you only want 3, this way it works is it scans every single channel to find them all and provide you with a list. And there's only room in the memory for 120 in the list, and it scans from the bottom of the frequency range to the top, which means that the top 2 blocks, which are 12B and 12D, which are the national blocks, it's run out of memory before it gets to the stations that everyone wants, because we all want the national radio stations. Yes, some people like the sort of more niche local stuff and that, but you know, I like the national ones, and it never gets there because the scan stops, it's run out of memory. And they clearly hadn't thought that there may be an occasion or some areas of the country, this is Berkshire, where you have got hundreds of DAB channels to choose from at any one time, and it just runs out, and therefore it doesn't work. As a get around at the moment, I found out that if you plug in the aerial halfway through the scan, it only finds the ones at the top, because you just plug the aerial in. So that's worked for now, but I'm going to get a new adapter. The other one is Android itself. This is an Android unit. And quite rightly, because it's a car radio, they don't want you to have to log in and log out every time you use it. So it just boots straight into Android unprotected. Now, if like me, the first thing you did when you're configuring it up was type in your Google account information because you want it to associate with your account, this then means that on this front screen, your account is available to anyone who gets in this car or steals the radio, because it's all programmed in, your account's programmed in here. And they can do it without a password or any kind of authentication once you've authenticated the radio the first time. Okay, so bear that in mind. This and it's not this radio, it's any Android car radio, because you don't want to log on when you're driving. Okay, boots you straight into an unprotected Android. So watch out for that. What I did was create a bogus account in Google, a random account that I created that enables it to store information that it needs to run, but it isn't my account. It hasn't got my authentication on it. It hasn't got my bank account on it, so that people in here can't sit in the car ordering what they like off of various services. So bear that in mind when you're buying this. Apart from that, we'll let you know how we get on with an update if necessary once we've lived with this for a few weeks. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like and subscribe. And until the next video, drive carefully. I'll catch you further down the road. So Future Martin here. I decided to add this on the end as it's been about 2 weeks since we did the actual install that you've seen video just now. And we've had some settling in problems. The key problem that we've had is vibration and noise with the radio unit. As you can see, this is a modern design with what they call a floating screen. So this is where, like some of these flashy electric cars, the screen appears to float forward of the base of the radio, which means it's actually fixed in the center here. Of course, being fixed in the center means it can vibrate at the edges of the screen. The old principles you taught in physics of levers, the distance from here to here, magnifies the effect. And this one has been really noisy, rattling, buzzing, everything. To the point where, had we not been able to cure it, we would have had to send it back. So what we did was go around trying to cure where the rattle or the buzz was coming from. First things first, when we took it out, we noticed that the little screws on the back of the corner of the screen, a couple of them were actually loose. Now, whether they had sort of vibrated loose, I don't know, but we have tightened them up and put a bit of thread locker on them and tightened them up. The other thing here is in the center is the mount that this slides into, and what I did there was put into the mount a couple of strips of anti-rattle tape and some insulating tape down the sliding bits themselves, so that to take up any slack in the mounting unit. And that has been a significant improvement, in fact, to the point where basically the radio itself now is rattle free. Why they didn't put some anti-rattle tape in with the kit or actually mount it in the factory into the mounting point, because if you Google this on the internet, you can see other people with rattle problems from this screen. So that's that cured. And the other thing, of course, is this is a Jimny. It's made of hard plastic, so the box into which this sits is hard plastic. So what I've done here, as you can see in these photographs, I've lined it with foam so that any cables or anything inside isn't touching hard plastic to rattle. And then all the cables, I've now got more of that anti-rattle tape and wound them up into like looms with the tape, so that they can't rattle either. So now there's no rattle from the screen, there's no rattle from the wiring behind, and after some bit more test driving, it appears to be cured. So just thought you'd like to know that. Basically, if you're doing this, buy a strip of this anti-rattle tape. I got mine from Amazon, and make sure you got it before you start, and then you can apply it generously around the whole system to cure any rattles that you're going to get. And I can't see how you're not going to get something with a screen like this, which is, as I say, center mounted and floating, unless you actually pack it out with anti-rattle tape in the back of the bracket. So anyway, until the next time, Drive carefully, and I'll see you further down the road. Future Martin. And we're back again to add a bit onto the end whilst I'm making the video. Another couple of weeks have passed since we thought we'd cured all the rattling noises, and the rattling is back. It's not particularly severe, but it's there, and I think it's the whole floating stereo design doesn't really lend itself to being in a Jimny. A Jimny's short wheelbase car rattles and bounces along the road, and I think that this time it is now shaken something, and something else is complaining within the radio. It's not something that I can see, find or fix. I think it's within the actual screen display itself. So perhaps something is slightly shaken loose in all the vibration in the car. So disappointing, but in my view, this sort of radio is probably not suited to the Jimny. You need one that fits in the dashboard, it's got all of the opportunity to be bolted down tight with nothing that naturally moves or vibrates. So probably you'll see maybe in the future James change over to something like a Kenwood which fits in the dashboard, and I might pick up the floating Android system and put it in my car, and we might have another look at the rattling in it as well at some point, but it's because it's at a tolerable level, but it is there. So it's not completely cured, and I'm not convinced that this type of radio is particularly suitable for Jimnys. That's my opinion. Other people may have had a lot of success with them. It may be that the one we got has got some manufacturing issue, but I can't see it, I can't find it, and it would probably be blamed on the car as much as the radio itself. So that's my view, is that perhaps look at a more solidly installed stereo if you're looking at changing your stereo in a Jimny. I hope this has helped. It's a bit different to end on a negative note on one of my videos, but we also like to end on an honest note, and that's where we are. We don't think it is 100% suitable for my vehicle. So thank you very much for watching. Drive carefully, and I'll catch you further down the road.